In some ways, I am galled that I must needs pen this missive. The citadel has stood in Westeros for thousands of years, the supposed center of enlightenment in all the world, the premier stage of science, discovery, and knowledge. How can it be that no one has thought to question the strictures of our society in all that time? Or perhaps there have been such dissenters. Perhaps their voice has only been scrubbed from the histories. At any length, friend, I find myself lost to the depths of despair. Men have lived in Westeros for nigh on 10,000 years. In all that time, we have been beholden to lords, to wardens, to kings and their nobility. It is the way of the world, supposedly. In the East, where men originated, the same structure has always applied. In fact, it could be argued the things there are notably worse. It is a land rife with the practices of slavery and sacrifice. Let us not dwell too much on it. Westeros will be my focus here, for I know its pulse best. To be lowborn in this world is to be a creature with no regard. It is to be an accessory, an afterthought, a useful tool that is brought out during the harvest, but left to languish in the shade until needed. These small folk spend their lives working the fields and paying tribute to their lords, giving of themselves in form of labor and taxes and blood. When conflict arises in the land, it is the lord's right to gather levies, to press the men of his villages into service as fodder for his wars. Farmers, fisherfolk, artisans, blacksmiths, whores, tailors, servants, traders. These are the paths open to those born of this station, and each of these paths finds itself beholden to the nobility of the land. The only exception to these are those who answer the call of priesthood and join the faith of the Seven, or those who, like me, join the citadel of Old Town and dedicate themselves to study. Incidentally, both of these offices are located in Old Town, which only exacerbates my frustration with our society. Surely some of these enlightened few should have backed against this oppressive structure? Because what do you think the Lord's opinion of their lessers is? From dawn to the wall, from the Iron Islands to the Stepstones, the highborn of the Seven Kingdoms rule supreme. They robe themselves in silk, dine on feasts embellished with spices imported from yonder lands, traipse about on grand horses, command guards and houses, and play the game of thrones with every drawn breath. The word here is entitled. They hold immense power, the casual right to mete out death however and whoever they wish. That is horrific to contemplate. One only need look at recent events to wonder why this populace has not risen up in revolt over this. When King Aegon I Targaryen met his death, the realm passed to his son Rhaenys by the queen Rhaenys. He was an indecisive ruler, and his lords despised him for his weakness. When he died, his aunt, the dowager Queen Visenya, rode to Essos and retrieved her banished son, the Prince Maegor. A ruthless man, Maegor embodied the worst traits of the Targaryen line: ruthlessness, bloodlust, and madness. Maegor seized the throne and crown from his nephew, claiming kingship by right of strength. At the time, the realm was divided. The faith had risen in outrage against the Targaryen tradition of wedding brother to sister, cousin to cousin. Incest is an abomination in the eyes of the gods. This conflict escalated when the warrior's sons challenged and was slain by Maegor. He roved the realm, slew thousands of small folk on a whim, and displayed their sun-bleached skulls as a warning to his dissenters. Thousands of small folk slain on a whim. More recently, King Viserys' death sparked conflict when his son Aegon, born of his second marriage to the Lady Alicent Hightower, seized the throne from Rhaenyra Targaryen, their father's named heir. That single event reverberated through the Seven Kingdoms like a clap of thunder. The Greens and the Blacks divided their realms' loyalties between them, and mad war swept over the Seven Kingdoms. True, dragon blood was shed alongside that of the smallfolk levies, but the price paid over this lordly conflict is absurd. Why, Aemon Targaryen himself slew thousands of non-combatants when the Blacks took King's Landing. Speaking of King's Landing, you've no doubt heard of the events that took place there under Queen Rhaenyra's reign. The crown and realm had been beggared by the vagaries of war, and the Blacks desperately needed to refill their coffers. So they raised taxes, outrageously so. There was a beggar's tax, a tax from every whore, additional ones from the shopkeepers and traders who plied their goods within the city. Ships docked in the bay had to pay extra fees. Those wishing to enter or leave the city by either of its gates had to pay. Maddened by this burden, the denizens of King's Landing rose in revolt. In one historic night of madness and fire, they rushed the dragon pit and slew the dragons within at no small cost. Fearing for her life and that of her last remaining son, Rhaenyra flew from the city, not on dragonback, but in the night, a desperate retreat. Even now, with the dance of the dragons ended and the wolves of Winterfell gathered within the Red Keep, the realm still reels. Those of us to whom it falls to pen the histories now turn back to these events and consider them carefully. See, in King's Landing, there arose a one-armed man of the people called the Shepherd. He is the reason for the people's revolt, with his stock of dragons and dragon flame. Mad he might have been, but objectively, he did have a point. I have considered our society, the inherent hierarchy, the traditions that endorse it, the people that labor within those confines. Why has it endured so long? Can it ever be dismantled? Will the small folk of these kingdoms ever cry out for their freedom? So far, every man I have ever met has been eager to kowtow and bow to the highborn, offering mumbled "milords" in obeisance. True, they speak out against their kings when times are lean, but come the spring and new growth, they are all too eager to kneel. My conclusion? There will never be change while the people of this land are so ignorant, while they are so beholden to the old gods and the new, while there are dragons in the land to bully them into submission. The first could be remedied, I think, but few have the mind for the instruction given within the citadel, nor would its maesters join a cause that purports to assail the might of the highborn. This whole place is reliant upon the mercies of the Lord's Hightower. Everyone trained here is conditioned to depend upon the patronage of a lord. It's inherent in the symbolic chain of office that supposedly binds us to the realm. Challenging the second obstacle, the gods themselves and people's faith in them, is nigh impossible. The third, though, dragons? It is fascinating that 100-odd peasants armed with pitchforks and kitchen knives were able to slay that many full-grown dragons. Simply fascinating. Perhaps a few of those fell beasts remain. Perhaps something can be done. At any rate, every chronicler knows the stark truth about history. There is a pattern, things tend to repeat. Other wars will wash over these lands, water them with the blood of the small folk. Who knows, maybe someday there will be a herald of some sort of change in our mores. In the meantime, something must be done about those bloody dragons and their eggs. This lowborn maester, this servant of the realm who is God's weary of his chains, will see what you can do. Tell me, friend. You know me best in all the world. You know I've always chafed at the strictures placed upon us. I am determined I will tread this course. The question is, you are well placed, and I could use your help. What will it take for you to aid me?